Welcome aboard The Nichole Show with host Nichole Hamilton. Our task is to educate, empower, and change lives. Join us for stories of resilience and rebirth. Honest talks that inspire and challenge you. Are you ready to make a move? It begins now. Ready to transform your passion into a profession? There's a link in the show notes to book a 30-minute Zoom call with me. It's just a short conversation to see if the program aligns with you. What we're really looking for is to determine how you can fulfill your goals and start your own journey as a Kidz Coach today. Visit the kidzcoach.com.au booking page, the Kidz Coach with a Z, to build a business that's not only successful, but is enriching and heartfelt. It changes lives and it starts with you. Hello, my beautiful souls who are dropping in and listening to this podcast. It is the Nichole Show, where we dive deep on lots of different facets of humanness, really, and some juiciness into my life. And today's guest, I have a beautiful friend and teacher of mine, Paul Eliseo. I can't even count back how many years we've known each other, but it's a long time. My brain won't do the maths. But Paul was one of my very instrumental in helping me take this journey. It was one of his students that I had my very first hypnotherapy session with that led me into sobriety. But Paul's been a teacher for over 20 years of NLP, hypnosis. I always come back to his company, Evolve and Relaunch, to learn from and send my students to. And so I would really love, I guess, almost to be like the fly on the wall and get some insights or your versions of the Nichole that you met that long ago. Ask me some juiciness, challenge me on anything, because I know we've had lots of different memories and situations come up. So yeah, without further ado,
cool.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you for having me on. This is going to be fun. Like you said, we've been on the journey together for quite a while, and if I go back to one of the first sort of times we kind of bumped into each other's reality, I remember you booked a session because you had met and worked with Luke, who was an amazing coach, one of my students who did amazing work with you, and you were kind of like sussing out like a little bit of like what I did, but if that was something you wanted to explore, because you had such a big shift personally from it. And I think it was we did a session at Bliss Organic Cafe upstairs there, and I think I remember doing a parts integration or something with you as well, and that was pretty big in that session. And that's kind of our first interaction, and I know that you had a lot shift before that, and you were that opened you up to wanting to do those kind of things with people as well. So like, what was that like for you, just obviously working with Luke and like that big shift for you? Because I think that you sort of said it was a big pivotal moment in your life. You had a lot of things going on, and then you made some big changes.
Yeah, well, I think my session with Luke was almost a year before I kind of bumped in with you.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what hypnotherapy was. I didn't know what coaching was. I just knew all the places I had been wasn't helping me with my depression, my marriage, my addiction. And that one session with Luke was so fucking profound. And I would love one day, I'm manifesting that he'll give me his version of it on here. But I got sober from then on. And I think it was a good maybe 8 or 9 months before I researched you and tried to find you. But I do remember the very first actual phone call. I remember it in my house, and I was like, I want to suss this Paul guy out. I didn't like where I'd done a drop-in about NLP. I was like, nope, I want to learn how Luke presented. He was so intuitive and it was so profound. I was like, no, I want to learn from his teacher. I was like, how am I going to meet this guy? And I'll book a session. And I was a very angry person back then. And I remember you asked me, you said, well, what's good about your anger? And I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, I don't know. And you're like, yeah, but what's good about it? And I was like, if you got rid of all your anger and you got rid of it and it was gone completely, what would you miss? And I was like, I speak my truth. Like, I bottle it all up until it bursts out. And I was like, this guy knows the questions. Like, this guy's got me thinking. And then, we booked our session, and I haven't honestly, stopped studying with you since. Like, I've dropped in and out, but that, being held by somebody, being seen, and, asking the right question, that's what you've taught me to be a great coach. Not all coaches hold that, that integrity and that, that want for that client. And, that drew me to learning from you, that and your intuition. So
Yeah, super fun. Yeah, because obviously then after that you went on a bit of a journey and you've gone down a few different paths, and I guess we'll kind of explore. You sort of had the more spiritual, the healing path of the Reiki, then the more mental, emotional of the Hypno and the NLP. And you, through this journey, also made huge life transformations and changes, which was cool to watch from my point of view, because like the Nicole that came in, the young mum, doing a business and like navigating like a lot of things, and then how that's changed and how you've leveled up throughout that journey has been fun to watch from like my point of view. So I'd like to kind of understand a bit of how that was on your side as well. And so I think your first step was that you went into the Hypno and with Juliet. Was that it, the first one?
Yeah, very first course, yeah.
Super fun class. I remember Dawn as well. That was, and Sarah McGee. Yeah, there was a lot of cool superstars in that class. And so jumping in as a student, because I'm not sure, you did a lot of things business-wise, and you had the beauty background and all that. And you've super intuitive connecting with clients. And, like you just said, that connection was really important to you. Like bringing that into your world and for yourself personally, like how did that shift you, but then how you worked with people? Because I know that you started really shifting from the body beauty to the internal beauty around that point. So that would be cool to hear.
Yeah. So as soon as that, like Hypno is probably my favorite. It is, understanding the language, diving deep and holding that energetic space for people with your words, like really just, coding in and anchoring and layering and doing it. I brought that straight back into beauty, whether I was doing a facial or an eyebrow wax. I also brought it home to my kids. Do you remember Brody? He was 7.
Yes.
And my Brody, he wanted to be like Paul. We dressed up in a suit one day when he met him, and he wanted to, and he would rant me back because I was bringing back positive language and asking the right questions. And what does that mean? And because you're doing that, and I would rant my kids, and then lo and behold, I remember I was having a bad day. I was driving home and I was complaining about something, and then Brody's like, yeah, but what if you did this and you looked at the street lights and all the lights just started coming on? And I was like, oh my God, I'm literally modeling what I want for my kids and the rest. So it felt effortless for me. Like I learned it with you guys, and then I just brought it home into my world, into my language, to my clients, to my kids, to my family. And I made a lot of mistakes or learned very quickly along the way.
Yeah.
But I didn't wait. I just used it straight away in all the facets of my life.
Yeah. And so cool thing that I want to know, because you've jumped and taken a lot of big leaps in business. Like you've rented spaces, you had equipment, you obviously jumped into coaching and therapy with people, and then running retreats, running online stuff. Like, what was the big mindset shift for you to get into business, but also then shift it, and what kind of blocks did you bump up against, but what did you shift to make those big leaps? Because not everyone does that. And so for someone who's seeing on the other point of view, like that's something I want to understand your journey, because you've been very entrepreneurial, very driven. Like, what do you think happened inside you to make those leaps as you went? And you might even start at the start, like what got you into business, but then what kept you jumping and changing and doing new things? Because some people get stuck at one thing forever, you know what I mean?
Well, I started beauty in 2009. I was working in a corporate job, had my maternity leave with the kids, and I was working for I love people, so that got me into people, and I'm quite visual. I love being a girly girl, so that stuff came very natural to me, and working from home was like a no-brainer. But actually, when I think back along my journey of when I've made those massive leaps, it's actually got to a point where I'm sick of the shit going on. So this lady I was working for, she was really unethical, she pissed me off, and I was like, F this, I can do it better myself. So I started my beauty business. I bought a $20,000 laser machine before they were even here, and I just did it. Like, I knew I had those skills, so I did it. With the journey into like Reiki and Hypno, like I already have my beauty business, so I was like, I've already got my clients, just do it. So I started offering like a little bit of energetic healing or Reiki or whatever else, free consults, and just did it. Like, I didn't wait. I feel like if people wait, they get scared, and then the fear comes up. And then the same thing with NDIS and going into disability and extra courses that I did. have worked in many places. My business has gone up and down. I've been, into the prison systems, back, waxing, the rest of
Not for everyone listening, you didn't go to prison, you worked within the prisons.
Oh yeah, I worked in the prisons. I worked in the prisons. I love people, and then I'd come back to coaching. But what I found was that when I saw different areas, I worked in the education system where it was broken. I was like, F this again, I can do it better myself. So I'd put a post out there, I'd put the energy behind it, and I would, create. Alongside of that though, was my masters and my coaches that I had in the background. Like, when I fell down, when I wasn't doing so well, my energy wasn't good, is when I wasn't working on myself and I didn't have a coach. I literally created everything that I did when I was working with either you or all my other beautiful coaches that I've had. It's somebody believing in me, reflecting back what I needed, and then giving me, and literally little seeds. They didn't do anything for me. They just said, you need to do this, this, and this. And then I did it. There was no. It was foot on the accelerator.
I want to shout you out for that, because some people, they do pause, they do hesitate, and then they make it bigger than it is. But like you said, you took action, get feedback. Don't always care about getting it right. Just learning as you go, making it better, and then like you said, having people around you to help lift you up. That's huge, because like I've coached and worked with a lot of people over the years, and it's always interesting for me why some people make that jump. And you obviously know the spiral dynamics model of values level 5, where you entrepreneur, make it happen, you want it now, you don't want to wait. And your thinking is like definitely in that, where you see what's happening, you can do it better, and you can get the results without all the bullshit. And so I love that you've brought that in, which has been cool to watch as well. One thing that I kind of love seeing in your journey, and seeing you make those big brave jumps, like, was transitioning out of a relationship you were in with kids into a new relationship, into having kids, and obviously being a different style of relationship than other people have been in. Like, what did you internally have to work through to make those jumps, but also any external backlash, any external judgments that you've found that you navigated through? Talk to me about that, because that's something that I
love how you're wording it so beautifully and so PG. So for those that first listening and don't really know about me, I left my husband, and Paul was actually my biggest coach in that time. That was really freaking hard. I was with this man, beautiful man, for 18 years, but we'd had our journey. And I remember some of the things that you said to me, like, what would you tell your kids if your kids were in this situation and they were feeling what you're feeling and going through what you're going through? Would you have that guilt? And so I made those choices, and so I moved into a relationship with a woman. So I had always known, though, from a very young age, that I was bisexual. It was something that my ex knew about as well, but it was very behind closed doors. No one really knew about it. I'm 43, so when I grew up, there was not really the LGBT community that there is now. Like, it's so celebrated and a little bit more normal. So when my wife now, Abby, came along, coming out as bisexual, people didn't know. They're like, oh, Nichole's gone from a husband to a woman. Like, that's I did come across a little bit of judgment, but I am super grateful that I did have a very beautiful community of people that already were quite evolved and understanding. There was just acceptance. It's like, okay, if that's what you're doing, we love and accept you and help you move through that. I did lose some beauty clients that didn't want their husbands or their partner, they didn't want me to see them naked anymore, because obviously I was with a woman. I did lose a couple of friends because their husbands were actually homophobic. Like, you can't hang around her anymore. They thought that I would...
You'd steal them.
Cracking on to every woman. I was just pimping it out everywhere, every woman. So there was a few things that, that few doors that did close. With my transgression working with kids, I'm very open and honest about my bisexuality and having a wife. And I honestly... it doesn't really happen now. I think that's my model of the world. People don't judge me, and the kids are curious, and I always bring it back to the parents, like, hey, they've asked about Abby. I tell them I have a wife. They ask about, how do you have Aurora? I'm like, it still takes a man and a woman to make a baby, but we have a beautiful Aurora. So it's very interesting. But to date, I don't get too much judgment, but I'm sure there is out there. I just don't look for it.
Yeah, 100%. And like the world seemed like it's changed a lot in the last decade or so. And like, obviously you've changed a lot with that, but like they said, the world has become a lot more inclusive, a lot more broad-minded, and a lot of those old judgmental, prejudged things that people had about certain kinds of ways of being I'd like to feel like it's totally changed in society for most people. And it's cool that you've noticed that as well. I know that on your journey with me, you've definitely leveled up a lot. For you, what do you feel like, if you were going to say like the top 3 biggest quantum leaps you've had in the last decade? Like, if it's business, if it's relationship, if it's in your own mindset, like what kind of big turning points almost do you think you kind of had, or big jumps that you took?
Well, the biggest one in business was working with kids. And I don't know if you remember, but credit to you, you gave me my first child client.
Oh, referred, yes.
You're like, you need to work with this kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. You're like, yeah, you do. Go work with this. And it progressed from there. And that became my my little mantra. I don't know what I'm doing when it came to kids. And Abs would always say as well, yes, you do. Because in that moment, I didn't go with a session plan. And every single time something would download and I would make what you had taught me, or NLP or shadow work or whatever it was, a game for kids, and taught them emotional regulation there in that minute in hula hoops or glitter or whatever else. So that was a big shift, because I didn't know. I only liked my own kids. I didn't know I was going to work with kids. And that kids just started getting attracted to me. And then families were ringing me, work with my kid, So that was because I thought I would work with drug addicts and people that had been through lots of other different things as well. So yeah, that was really interesting. And relationship wise, the growth that Abby and I've had, we've been through a journey, and that depth of actually being able to grow together, be 100% honest with all the thoughts and emotions, deeply vulnerable, and having our own coaches and relationship coaches, and continuing to put back into us. That's really allowed me to be the best Nichole that I can be, and really go back and heal that worthiness part. Like, that has been the absolute best part. So yeah, so relationship, myself, and the third one, I'm not really sure. Third one, I guess being the best mum that I can be, because I brought it home to my kids, and even little Aurora picks up on all the energies that we know. So in the group settings, she'll pick up on like putting hands on healing, or saying cool words like I'm amazing, I'm so brave, and being a really good role model for my children. And my boys are older now, they're 17 and 14, and they're both really good humans, really integrated. So that's probably the proudest part of it. Like, doing this work, I've become, a sober, beautiful human that I'm proud of, that my kids can be proud of, and they're modeling those behaviors, and they're surrounded by a community of like-minded people that they can, connect with too.
Huge. I think I saw a photo recently that you posted, and the boys were like up here, and I remember when like Jakey and Brody were just like little tiny guys running around. Now they're like, giants, which is kind of cool to see. And so obviously that brings new challenges. What do you feel like is the next sort of frontier for you in all of those contexts? Mum, relationship, business. Like, what do you think is the next challenge?
The next challenge?
You won't give you easy questions, Nichole. You didn't think I was gonna...
No. I love it. My next challenge. Wow. It's always doing more. It's learning more, where else can I go with it? I guess the challenge will be, my boys and Aurora, eventually, she's only 3, grow up and I'll be a grandma. Like, look at that life. Like, where will I be then? Will I still be coaching? Will I, what kind of life? Where will we travel to? Where will the business go as well? I have some different ideas for coaching, where I want to kind of go and play with it as well. but still the main thing is always checking back in with my heart and making sure I'm living it like to the fullest, like living in fulfillment, living in passion, making sure I'm back in alignment, because with that entrepreneurial level 5 thing, you can get very busy, very scatty, and it's not always the right thing. So as long as I'm living from my heart and doing things that I love, which is why I'm creating this podcast, to inspire others, then that's what, that's the biggest thing, making sure that it's always coming from that right place.
That's such a good advice overall, I think, in general, for anyone to sort of not just get caught up in doing things, but check back in with themselves and kind of see where they're at, and if it sort of feels right at their core. What else would I want to know? I think, like, we've been in each other's worlds for quite a while, and you've seen me go through some big sort of changes and levels up in my life. Like, you saw me take a few big leaps as well, which has been kind of cool. Like, almost similar, like in relationship, in business. I don't have children, but you've seen Max, my little fur baby, grow over the journey with me as well. I guess then, like, if you were to summarize like your top takeaways from learning from me in the journey that like you've really taken home, like I'd love to like get a little bit of a, in a
reflection.
nutshell, what you kind of like, what are your principles that you've taken away?
I love that. For me, the biggest takeaway from watching you and your growth is that you are always deeply vulnerable and just okay in your own skin. It didn't matter if something didn't go to task, nothing seemed to phase you. You would take it in your stride. I do remember me like arcing up at the Reiki Masters, and you always so comfortable with anything that comes up in your world, all the challenges, and very honest about it. So you would share your life, what you're going through, how to deal with that, what you've been through, and that deeply vulnerable modeling and mentoring showed me that it was okay to be completely myself and human. So that was one of the biggest things. Like, the way that you teach is so authentic and so funny because you were just comfortable in your skin. It didn't matter what the students threw at you, whether it was in person, online, how these things came about. I've seen you meet multiple students challenge you in different workshops, and the way that you handle it is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
So I have learned that. I had a student do the same thing to me at the retreat recently, and it just reminds me, like, you've really modeled that of just holding space. And then from that, the biggest thing that you taught me was heart space, which has been reintegrated in many, many coaches and teachers. But coming back to heart, like, if we always want for our clients their result and always want from a pure place of just wanting them to find their own answers, and really coming back to that, getting out of our head into our heart, holding that space is so important. It's one that I live by, like really connecting to our hearts to be the best coach that we can be. Because we can get, in our heads about, well, what about this technique, or what about that, or, or get confused. But it really comes from that intuition, and that's what you taught in. I remember when you were very spiritual, Paul, it was all about the energy, all about that. And I'm sure it's a part of you, but you were the one that first taught me that. And so it's a part of all my teachings as well, that H+. I know you call it the evolved state now, but coming from heart is so important. And then I guess the third thing really is the way that I saw you evolve. Like, we were, classrooms of 5 or 6, in a back, Bliss Cafe, or wherever it was, where you were teaching and you were running your PT business, and then to scale to your, I'm sure, multi 6-figure business, and 30 to 40 people online on Zooms across the world, and to see your magic shift. And I think before that you were traveling around the country as well. You weren't afraid to take those steps and try something new to expand what you really wanted to teach. And the thing that makes, for me, because I have been with other teachers before, is that you're so passionate about it, and the way that you teach is so fun. I guess that's why I love it, because I'm a bit of a kid myself. You make it to do, like, show it, do it, show it, do it. And that's how your students become so good, because they're practicing it the whole way through. And because of your teaching style and the way that you do it, you're always fully booked. Like it's really inspiring to see that growth, because as I said, I feel like I got the best because I got you when you were small. And I remember having to pair up with you and do hypno and you, and I was
you did techniques for me. That was so good.
It was terrifying. I was like, how am I going to hypno the hypno teacher?
I'm the easiest client ever. I was zoned out and my eyes were closed. I was already gone before you even started most of the time.
But I feel so proud and so special because I really got to, the teaching's very much the same, but I got more of you in those sessions because they were little, and so it was beautiful. And now I'm like, wow, look at him go. Like, it's so cool to drop in and be staff or helpers or do your new courses. But that growth has inspired me. Like, I've created my own certification programs and stuff as well, but it's definitely modeling the things that I've seen and the growth and that inspiration.
Huge. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to just reflect that back, because one of the things I feel like is the mirror principle when I talk about, you see yourself in everyone. And a lot of the things that you just said about what you've seen in me is things that I've seen in you 100% too. So like that heart space, that fun, that, connection with clients, and like creating that safe space for people to learn, but also make it enjoyable. And like all of those things that you've said, like, just being there, being able to adapt, being on the fly, really just comfortable in yourself. Like, they're all things that I've seen in you as well. And that's been really nice to see. And obviously birds of a feather flock together, and you attract people in your world that are pretty similar. But it's been super inspiring to watch your journey as well. And it kind of like, it's similar but different. Like, it's kind of interesting to chat it through because we both had similar challenges as we've gone through and done things, but it's been nice to watch it happen on sort of in both of our worlds through different points of view, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And I just really like remembering all our memories. You hosting for Abby and I, that with Juliet, that beautiful hypnotic connection for our wedding was so special. So because of this work, I did call in Abby, my soulmate, and you've called in Juliet, and the work that I've done, Abby jumped in, she did NLP with you guys, and I've taught her Reiki, and so energy and communication and really bonding like that with the partners transformed my life. And it was really beautiful and special to have you not only as a mentor but a friend. And I was just thinking back, that beautiful ceremony that you helped co-create for our relationship. That
was really lovely. I remember that. A beautiful morning down at the beach, and such a beautiful ceremony you guys put on as well. And Julia and I are lucky enough to sort of be a part of that. That was really cool. And like you said, almost all of those areas, like obviously I haven't had the family parent journey, but the business, relationships, they're such personal growth journeys. And like we've lived enough life now to know it's not always easy. It's not all sunshine, rainbows and lollipops. Even though, we're taught that growing up, like a lot of the challenging, harder interactions in relationship or in business, they make you better. Like, you don't grow by just always having the easy stuff, right? And so like seeing you jump into challenges, take on new things, and like now where you're at, like bringing in bigger business, doing new things, getting out there more, that's not easy. And it takes that courage, that just do it and learn as you go mentality that you've definitely embodied, and just seeing how far you can push it. Like I feel like you've got that little bit in you as well, like how far can I go with this thing, right? Like that naughty kid syndrome where like how much can I do before I get in trouble, right? And that you need that, like that rascalness a little bit. And so I think you embody that so well, but in a loving and caring way, obviously, as well. Like, and I feel like that playfulness is a good energy to go into those challenging situations with as well. But I think you've done a lot of really big things throughout your life, and this is exciting, this new frontier, this podcast as well. And like, thank you so much for having me on. Is there anything else you want to sort of dive into?
Anything else that you've ever wanted to ask me or
ever wanted to ask?
Or it could be anything, because I really want people to see the other side of Nick, not just the coach. It can be anything.
Okay. So I knew that you kind of did sort of navigate through some drugs and addiction early on, but how bad did it get? Like, what were you kind of like? What was the like? Give me some of the almost not like give me the cut scenes from like what happened. Like I know that you went through that, and I know that you said it was like pretty huge issue for you at the time, like, but I don't know what extent that was like.
Yeah, so my drug of choice was ice, and it was smoking it in a glass pipe. And when my granddad died at 30, I used that as an excuse to find a dealer behind my ex-husband's back. So I had my own stash. So I was using it every day. I was using more than him. I remember wrapping Christmas presents one year, like, you know, high as a kite, thinking I don't want to be doing this. And then, like, literally fast forward, it was like Christmas Eve again, doing it. I remember going to work at wherever I worked, smoking it in the toilets, like quietly. Like, it was fucking bad. I don't know how I survived. Like, I wanted to die on the come downs, like when I had no more money. My ex and I never stole, never like got into that place, but we nearly lost our house. My mum and dad had to move in with us when we confessed. That was just before my appointment with Luke. And I remember one time I had this person at our house. They had a lot. They had like honestly like a brick of ice, and they had dropped shards. And so in my head I thought that there was some there, and I literally lost hours crawling on the floor looking for more when I was coming down, because I'd stayed up for 5 days in a row and I was losing my mind. I'm so grateful and surprised that my brain actually works the way that it does now. Like, I literally fucked it over. Like, I was hallucinating. I was not okay. And yeah, I did. I wanted to die. I literally did.
And so this is probably a big thing too. There's probably people still going through that, right? And so it sounded like it got to a pretty desperate point. But for people that maybe are at the desperate point or not there yet, but know that they don't want to be where they are, like, what would you say to someone who was going through that now and wants to make a jump?
Just keep asking for help. Yeah, I had asked for help. Like, I was trying to kind of ask for help but not tell everybody about it. So I went to my doctors, I went to a psychologist through work, went through drug and alcohol counseling, and some bits helped and then some bits didn't. And inside, I think every single soul, you know, the words that used to come to me is, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here. And I thought that was suicidal thoughts, but it wasn't that. Now that I've unpacked it, I don't want to be stuck in this fucking misery. I don't want to be stuck in this hellhole that I've created. And so inside there was a part of me desperately wanting to be sober. And, you know, I do believe that universe and God puts signs in our path. And when I heard about hypnosis, I had no fucking idea what it was. I just knew I needed it. And so that's why, you know, I do talk about this, because there are amazing coaches out there that can help with addiction that are out of the norm. You know, it's not through medication, it's not through doctors, it's not through that. There are, you know, coaches that can really help. And it's not just, you know, a quit smoking session. It's fucking emotional shit. Like, why are you doing that stuff? I was deeply unhappy with who Nichole was, because I didn't even know who she was. And through those sessions and through this like 12 years growth now, I've, you know, working on all those, you know, inner child Nichole, the unworthiness, the things that were making me unhappy. And I used to also be super guilty about drug addiction Nichole. I love her. She's fucking so savvy, so smart. She can lie like a motherfucker. She kept me alive, really. She really did. And I had to really then go fall back in love with her, because she did keep me safe. She numbed me out to get me through that really awful time. So anybody that's going through that, don't judge yourself. You're doing it for a reason, to try and keep yourself safe, as crazy as that sounds. And there are people out there, you just haven't found the right person to help you through your journey. And so you have to keep asking.
That's huge. And I love that bit about making sure that you go back and really own that person, love that person, because it's you, and that was the best you that you could be at that time to get through what you're going through. And one of the key sort of things that we talk about in some of the courses that you've been through is, you know, people are doing the best they can with the resources they have available. And, you know, sometimes the best coping mechanism you have is to do a substance, but that, you know, is get you through, but it won't keep you going or get you to where you want to go. Like, what got you here won't get you there. And like finding people to help you, finding new tools, new strategies to be able to shift the root cause, the emotions that maybe you were numbing, that was huge. And like, I know that you've obviously know that, but a lot of people don't know that, you know, you can shift how you feel. You can shift your self-worth, you know, those emotions of sadness, that loss, that grief, that not being good enough, or whatever it comes from. those things can change, and you can change your life and everyone else around it, because like you're a completely different mum than you were back then, you're a completely different partner,
100%.
and you can give now to others because you've, like it's almost that energy of shutting yourself down and like putting things on top to hide what you think you don't like about yourself, other people aren't going to like. But then when you've done the clearing work and you've done the shifting work, it's like the energy goes the other way. It's like you're giving, you're shining, you're giving to others. And that's something that you really embody and you really show. And like something that you're like doing your life like is just a fountain almost. Like the energy just goes the other way. And like your, energy of loving self, caring about you to the point where you have so much more of that to give, has been really cool to watch that as well. Because like you said, you're probably pretty down and out there, but now like you're like a glowing beacon, and everyone has that in them. And that's the cool thing that, you really know as well, and you really embark on the people that work in your world as well. That's super fun. So I guess then for people that aren't in that position, that are doing okay, but want to do okayer, if people are doing good but want to do gooder, right? That I teach language, and that's the fun part about it. What would you say to someone who's thinking like, okay, I'm like, my life's pretty good, but I know there's more? Like, what's your sort of key tips for that? Because you've been in that place too, right?
Yeah, I honestly believe that it's the continual growth of learning. So, when it's good, that's great, but you kind of get almost complacent, or just kind of almost you get back into repeat, and everything's okay, everything's not, but that's not where the joy is and where the passion is. So it's really coming back to what lights you up and where to next. So having goals obviously is one thing, but for me it's always having a new coach or a new teacher. So I'm always curious. I've done so many different, courses, and, Abs and I have relationship coaches and sex therapists and, financial coaches. We learn from all different places and spaces, because each time I'm leveling up, and when I'm not, and when I've gone that, I don't need a coach at the moment, or I'm done. I fall back into the trap of Groundhog Day. So for me, it's finding those new teachers and people that inspire you. And it doesn't always have to be a paid thing. Like, obviously we have our courses and we've got coaches, and we've got 1,000 coaches in our networks too, guys. So we don't have to be the right people for you. We can always refer. We're super busy anyway. But podcasts like this that are free, listen to them, like be inspired, know that you're not alone. Find something on YouTube, listen to an audiobook. Like for me, that's what it's about. Like, where am I growing to, learning from next?
Perfect. Love that. So like that attitude of curiosity, always looking, growing, learning, and like having a new mountain to climb, like, so it's just not in Groundhog Day. I love that. I think that's great messages. I feel like I've kind of emptied almost anything I can think of. This is one thing I want to ask. If you were on your death row meal, what would it be? Like, if you like had one meal that you could eat for the last meal that you'd eat, I know it's a random question, what would be your like go-to meal?
I would go have ayahuasca.
Okay.
Give me ayahuasca and let me go like that.
Okay. And so for those that don't know, what's the intention, or why would you want to do that as the last thing?
Ayahuasca is plant medicine, and it's been a beautiful healing thing that I've dived into a few times myself. And it's a beautiful psychedelic that lets you touch base with your soul. So I've been in a place where I've nursed people to their passing and seen how their soul transforms, and I'm an energetic being. So I've already said it, if I'm on my deathbed, somebody bring me some ayahuasca and let me journey in peace with love, with all the spirits and souls around, being called back to earth. So that's what I would choose.
I love that. So not the mortal food, but the immortal food, almost. That's pretty profound. I love that. Any last sort of light bulbs or takeaways that you kind of have just stuck with you over the years? Well, favorite quote. what's the that's probably a big one.
Quote, one that you had taught me, but it's not yours. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures that you seek.
Yes, Joseph Campbell. Yes.
When I get stuck, it's like, oh, why am I not? Like, I can even feel it in my stomach. Like, you got to do it. Like, so I still have my fears too.
Yeah.
But when you are really scared about something, like even as I said before we jumped on here, I get nervous about this. Where is this going to go? But do it anyway. I get nervous before my coaching sessions too. Do it anyway.
That's it. And I think that's a sign that you care, that you want a good outcome. Like, it's a sign that you're a human being and alive. If you're not getting those feelings of growth and you feel like some sort of stretch is probably not a big enough challenge. And that's something I've seen through your journey. You do take on big challenges. You have leveled up heaps. So I'm wishing you tons of luck in the new podcast, but also everything that you're doing. I think it's been an amazing chat. I'm not sure how you're feeling, but I feel like that's a great ending, just to go into the cave. I love sort of the recaps for those listening. My sort of big takeaways from today was that attitude of curiosity, keep learning, keep finding mountains to climb, have great people around you, coaches, mentors, etc. Like, love yourself at every point of the journey, because that's the best you can bring at that moment, but that doesn't mean that won't change and get, even better over time. And just have fun on the journey. I think that's the main things I've taken away from our chat today.
And I just, reiterate, when you do the work, like, you literally meet other souls that you fall in love with. And Paul, you're a beautiful, safe, masculine energy. And it's so beautiful because, I am with a woman. I do really appreciate the male role models in my life and the teachers. And I have, a lot of female coaches as well. But it's really, really important to just keep finding, like, keep asking, because you never know who you're going to meet on these journeys and who you're going to click with and where it's going to take you. So, I've literally met, the greatest people in my life from this space, from desperation to this beautiful place.
Yeah, well, desperation creates innovation and inspiration, but then when you're in that place, it creates more inspiration. And I want to thank you as well for showing up, taking those jumps. Like you said, you've been an amazing student, but also an amazing friend through my life and some of the huge transitions that I had. I know there was times in my life where I needed some help, and you were there for me on that too. So thank you. It's always good to see, and also inspiring for me to see people that have taken these things and just run with it.
Yeah, it is.
That's been really cool to see. And I know you get that feeling too when you have someone in your world and you see them like turn into who they know they could be. That's always cool. And like, I'm always happy for people to be where they are and just love that. But I know that some people really want to just, see how far their wings can grow. And I know that wings have been a big part of your journey and some of your logos and stuff like that. But I feel like your wings just keep getting stronger and they keep flying higher. So that's been fun to watch. And, I love seeing your journey.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. It's been a beautiful chat. We'll have all Paul's stuff down in the bio as well, in case you are interested in learning Hypno NLP or just meeting this beautiful man. So thank you so much, and maybe we'll have you on again at some point.
I'd love to, and we can chat about anything else you want to dive into as well. But it's nice to kind of get to know your world a little bit and hear some of the background. Keep evolving, everyone. Talk to you soon. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.